Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Sade Anderson, and I am the Program Director for Local Concepts LLC, which provides network management support to the Chesapeake Food Shed Network. I'm joined today by Local Concepts Network and Communications Assistant, Valley Edenbow, as well as our resource experts who will be introduced shortly. We're also joined by some portion of over 200 registrants from all across the US and the globe, and we thank you all for being with us today. I want to take this time to thank our sponsors, Prince Charitable Trust and Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Local Distribution Work Group. Thank you both for sponsoring today. Now I'm going to quickly go over Local Concepts and the Chesapeake Food Shed Network. Local Concepts has been providing network management support to the Chesapeake Food Shed Network, also known as CFN, since 2014. Local Concepts is a social enterprise consulting firm working with businesses, organizations, and others to accelerate value-driven transformation. We work with clients to harness the collective power found in social networks to drive positive change. The CFN is a growing network of 1,700 individuals and organizations across the Chesapeake Food Shed. Our mission is to catalyze connections and collaborations necessary across the region to work towards a food system that supports healthy communities, land, and waterways. We believe that by working together, we're better positioned to advance the pace of change. We're led by the food system and working to operationalize values related to equity and justice. To learn more and to join the network, please visit our website at thechesapeakefoodshed.net. All are welcome. Now I'm going to pass it over to Patty Miller of the Chesapeake Farm to Institution Work Group.
Thanks, Sade. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name's Patty Miller. I'm from West Virginia's Eastern Panhandle. Together with Kristen Markley, we have the privilege of co-chairing the Chesapeake Farm to Institution Work Group. Our work group is a network of cross-sector individuals and organizations intentionally engaged to connect our local farms with institutional markets. Making the connections is the beginning of our collaborative work. Along the entire value chain, each sector is working to build our collaborative capacity. This includes removing barriers, creating policies, building necessary infrastructure to operationalize and institutionalize getting more local food to our value-driven markets. Today, our presenters have generously agreed to share their valuable experiences developing procurement contracts that support these goals. Kristen is the Regional Coordinator for Healthcare Without Harm's Healthy Food Initiative and Healthcare Program. My company, Grow with the Flow, works with farms and others along the local value supply chain, working to get this food organized and ready for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. First, we're going to hear from Jen Obadia. Jen Obadia brings 15 years of sustainable food systems advocacy with her to Healthcare Without Harm. Prior to joining the team in 2014, Jen farmed, managed the Boston Bounty Bucks SNAP Incentive Program, and served as adjunct faculty at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. She has a PhD in nutrition and a BA in creative writing. When she is not working, Jen spends much of her time trying to convince her son that vegetables taste good. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks so much, Sade, and thanks to everyone for inviting me to be with you all here today. It's an exciting topic, So I will talk a little bit today, share a little bit about who Healthcare Without Harm is, and then really dive into an overview of why to utilize contracts to try and advance goals towards local and sustainable food procurement, and how to go about doing that, starting with the RFP process and moving along into the contracts themselves. So who is Healthcare Without Harm? We are a global environmental health organization, and everything we do really lives at that intersection of public health and environmental health. And we really like to refer to ourselves as a family of organizations, as you can see on this slide here. So Healthcare Without Harm itself, we refer to as sort of the innovation arm of the organization. So we have the great privilege of working with facilities, healthcare facilities across the country to really test strategies, innovate, pilot, and figure out what works towards the goal of really moving healthcare towards being leaders in environmental health and justice. Once we've figured out some strategies that seem to have some traction, Practice Green Health, our membership arm, really works to scale those up to its 1,200 members across the country. That might be in the context of food systems work or a whole host of other environmental issues, whether it's greening the OR or the connection between healthcare and climate change, and everything in between. And then the newest member of our family of organizations is Green Health Exchange, which is a cooperative purchasing organization. So hospitals and healthcare systems are member owners. And really, this came about as a strategy to help accelerate market access to sustainable products. So that's a little bit about us. Moving to the topic of today, really the question is why focus on contracts, and why are they a good strategy or a good lever for creating change towards procurement of local and sustainable foods? And really, it might be obvious, but they are just a really great strategy to provide very clear, direct communication to any of the vendors that you're working with, whether it's a management company, a group purchasing organization, or a distributor, about what your needs are and what your expectations are from them. Also, contracts are enforceable. So if there are challenges with your vendor meeting any of the articulated goals, you have something that you can back up to. And then lastly, we're really seeing that it's a successful strategy. And so we're excited to be able to share it out with folks today. Oh, sorry, you're seeing my screen and I just messed it up. There we go. So really, we think that the starting point for all of this work is around identifying how your organization's mission connects to food procurement. And in the case of health and healthcare facilities, we think that there are a variety of really key ways that the food system can be a partner in addressing health and moving further upstream towards towards prevention. So it might be like considering issues such as poverty as a social determinant of health, and you might care about the wages of folks that are working in the food system. You might care about diversity and health disparities, and so might be interested in increasing procurement from small women and minority-owned farm and food businesses. It might be about environmental health and the production practices that are being used and how they impact the health of workers and the farming communities. Or it might be simply about the nutritional value of the food that you're serving. So I think the first step is really important to think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish through purchasing local or through purchasing sustainable, because that can then help you set your goals and the criteria that you're looking for from different vendors. And then, of course, incorporating those values in your goals into an RFP is the first step. So some of the things that are important to consider is balancing the rigor of the specifications in your bid with market realities. So of course, we all want food that's regionally produced, completely sustainably, and providing living wages and strong positive working conditions for everybody. But that's not what our food system looks like right now. So it's important to think about how we scaffold our way into that and build market demand. And so that's exactly what putting this in your contract does. It's also really important to have an evaluation rubric that can demonstrate to vendors that are considering replying to the RFP just how important these issues are. Where do they fall for you in comparison to traditional criteria such as quality or price? And then I think it's also really useful to include your institution's philosophy and why it is that you're incorporating these new requirements or specifications into your bid, and why it is that you want these types of food products for your food service operation. So those are some of the things that are important to ask about and include in your RFP. One other thing that's really critical is providing as clear a possible definition as you can. So even amongst us on this webinar today, I'm sure if we asked, how do you define local, we'd have at least a dozen different definitions. And so that's likely going to be the case between you and any vendor that might be replying to a call for proposals. So it's really important for you to incorporate what your definition is and what you're really looking for from them. So this slide just has a couple of examples of how you might define local, just as one example. And then we also have here, and I won't go through all of this in great detail because these slides can be made available to you, but what you see here are some suggested questions to include in the RFP, things that you want vendors to respond to so that you can have a better sense of how they operate and how that aligns with your needs and your values. So that includes things like, how much local food do they already have available? How are they working with vendors, with farmers and food businesses to increase availability? What are they requiring of the suppliers themselves? And what are their plans to expand the availability or the portfolio of products that they have that meet the criteria you're looking for? It's also really important to ask them about their sourcing practices. So how are they marking local foods in the ordering guide? Is there a limit to the amount of these local foods that you can expect from them? What is the definition that they're using? How will the tracking be made available? And what, if any, educational support do they provide? So once you've put the RFP out and you've gotten responses to this really kind of broad array of questions with regards to this issue, and of course that'll be in addition to other elements that are important for your operation, what do you include in the contract itself? Well, first and foremost, I think it's really important to include those definitions so that everyone's at the same point with regards to what specifically it is you're talking about. And then what are the goals for the volume of product that you're expecting to achieve those definitions? And so that's where I think part of balancing sort of market realities with your ideal goal is around creating perhaps some sort of timeline. So specifically, if this is a bid for a food service management company, likely you're looking at a 3 to 5 year contract. So how do you expect them to scale up the amount of these types of products that are made available to you over that time frame? And what does that end goal look like for you? Additionally, there will be competition in terms of the different values that you're trying to achieve, whether that's quality, price, local production, sustainable production. So help provide them with some guidance on how to prioritize. What should be the first most critical element, and then what are the things that build on top of that? So those are some of the elements related to this that are really critical to include in a contract. And then the last piece that I'll add is just, it's also important to think about and actually include in writing some elements about implementation of the contract itself. So how often do you expect to get a report from them? How will that be compiled? How will you evaluate it? Things along those lines so that you really can track progress towards the goals that you've established. And then also of equal importance is who are those point people, both in your organization as well as the vendor that you're contracting with, who are responsible for this? Who's the bottom line that you know you can always go to find out what's going on? And if there are challenges, what's being done to address them? And then of course, frequency with which all of this will happen. Do you need quarterly reports, or is once a year sufficient, or somewhere in between? So that's a bit of an overview. I'll leave it at that. And now I'm really excited that we get to hear from two wonderful examples from Penn Health and from Cleveland Clinic, who have really put some of this into action. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Next, we're going to hear from John E. Utek. John is the Senior Director of the Office for a Healthy Environment at the Cleveland Clinic, where he develops sustainability strategies to emphasize the triple bottom line. John directs the clinic's sustainability program covering energy demand reduction, recycling, LEED, climate reliance, sustainable food, green supply chain, water reduction, engagement, and reporting. John leads the organization's climate action, which includes climate resilience planning, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. John works with local food systems, chairing a committee that oversees farmers markets, working with vendors to source more local and sustainable food, and educate caregivers in the community on the benefits of sustainable food systems, linking environmental health and human health to make our world healthier. John earned an MBA and an MPOD from CWRU and a BA in history from Dartmouth College. Thank you, John. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. I want to talk about contracting for change, but first, I want to talk a bit about Cleveland Clinic. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are a healthcare organization that started in Northeast Ohio. We're also in Florida, Nevada, Canada. We operate a hospital in Abu Dhabi and London. We have 10 billion in revenue, 56,000 caregivers. We call all of our employee caregivers, and we have more than 8 million patient visits a year. We have had a 12-year commitment to sustainability. Our current CEO, Dr. Mihaljevic, talks about stewardship, sustainability being part of our really commitment to health and well-being of multiple generations. And we're only temporary stewards of our planet, and it's on us to make the planet better to support human health. We are signatories to the UN Global Compact, which is a set of human rights, labor, environmental, and anti-corruption principles. And as you know, we see those as aligned to our mission as a healthcare organization. And specifically in the area of environment, it talks about taking a precautionary approach to environmental challenges and trying to promote practices with greater environmental responsibilities. And there's also, about 4 years ago, they set out some sustainable development goals around no poverty, zero hunger, health and well-being. And really food touches on a number of these goals. And within our footprint and beyond, we work to develop solutions that make the communities that we serve healthier. What I'm going to do is sort of start at a high level and then get into how contracts have really taken this local food commitment much deeper and further. But whenever I talk about sustainability, I talk about the social environmental determinants of health. And this is a study done in Wisconsin, community health leveraging the social determinants of health. And the biggest thing that impacts human health is socio and economic. Then it's behaviors, and it's also the physical environment. So what is our indoor air quality, soil, and really food impacts all of those things. And 20% is actually healthcare delivery services. So this is a big multi-stakeholder touching effort. So in terms of organizing this change, we socialize this with our CEO, a chief wellness officer, the people within our operations. We call it patient support services that deal directly with food service, hospitality, and retail, our external vendors that sell food within our hospital footprint, myself and our supply chain team. Then externally, we have contracted food service vendors that prepare meals for our patients and visitors, a farmers market group we work with, and different retail entities. It's really been a journey, and I want to briefly touch on this because I think in any work that I do, we have to build a consensus and build a series of successful steps that ultimately allows you to take the leap to reach your end goal, in this case, getting more local and sustainable food. So talk a bit about our history around wellness, banning smoking and fast food, trying to promote healthy behaviors, trying to do local buying without any contractual language, getting some contractual language, using regional engagement as a lever, ultimately setting a goal and then embedding language into our contract. So really food, we're a healthcare organization. If you go back maybe 15 years, the food we were serving our patients wasn't really aligned with our own health recommendations. So part of our journey was aligning those recommendations with our, in our food service offering. We expanded our concept of what safe and healthy means to include environmental impact. We talk about food access as a community health issue, and ultimately this is about making Cleveland Clinic a healthy place to work and heal. So going back about a decade, we had a McDonald's on our main campus. And our CEO came out and said, fast food, we basically made a commitment to get fast food out of our healthcare system. And some of you may have seen this story. After he made that announcement, we found out that McDonald's still had an 8-year contract. And so actually, having made this statement and made a lot of changes, we had a McDonald's within our main campus until 2 years ago. So I include that partly because it's the power of contracts, both the food we serve as well our retail vendors. We've banned smoking, we've stopped hiring smokers, insurance premiums to healthy behaviors, encourage people to eat healthier, be more active, and we became trans fat free in our food service offerings, and we sort of cascaded these changes in the next couple of years throughout both our vending options and retail offerings. So if you're at Cleveland Clinic, you can't buy a sugary soda, you can't buy a candy bar. We offer and retail healthy food options. In parallel, we have run a farmer's market on our main campus now for 12 years. And we've realized that local food is an important part of this health equation. And really, here's the rationale that we've used with our own leadership internally and externally around that. Our main campus is in a food desert, but we have a really strong local food scene. We're surrounded by farming communities here in Northeast Ohio, but food spend that goes to out non-local food, depending on what estimate you look at, maybe less than 2% of that money actually stays in Northeast Ohio. And if 40% of our impact is economic, local food is a powerful economic driver for the region. We've done a lot of farmers markets. I just want to talk about it briefly. We used a couple different models of deployment. If any of you are on this journey, I'm happy to offline share a bit more about this, but these are the 3 different models that we've used most deliberately within our own organization. As we've done this, everyone want ones. Renegade markets pop up at our hospitals because a couple of people get together and say they want to do it. So we actually run a farmers market committee that sort of manages all this. And we use those markets as educational vehicles for local foods, local farmers, and all different kinds of food and health issues in our organization. And our main campus has a big market. We offer WIC coupons, and we're actually the second biggest WIC redemption spot within Cuyahoga County, which is the county that the city of Cleveland is in. But to talk more directly about purchasing local food, as we had this farmers market, we had farmers coming saying, hey, we have this amazing local foods. We tried a variety of different methods around local purchasing direct from farm. We had a food service vendor that bought all the food that our farmers had at the end of the day, right? Looking at auctions and, but there's a variety of sort of, since we use contracted food service vendors, there's a variety of things that they need from a health and safety standpoint that made some of these things challenging to scale up. And some of this is, increases cost, and it's been challenging, and there's sort of a whole movement to try to document what local is, making sure that it's marked and authentically local. There's really a whole infrastructure that's been building around processing as well. So, we've lessons learned in terms of the way that we need to actually prep and produce food within our kitchens and how local food meets that. So a while back, we created a local food collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic and university hospitals. the other major healthcare system here in Northeast Ohio, and academic institutions and food service vendors and food processing companies say, hey, how do we accelerate this? How do we do it better? And we launched a number of initiatives. And these were all impactful, useful things. At the same time, with our food service company, at the time we had one, we put a provision in our contract that required that they reported on local food. We made it an annual requirement. We used the Healthy Hospitals Initiative at that time, which is Healthcare Without Harm program definition, which is the 250-mile radius. But we didn't create a goal because we were concerned about, we didn't really know what the goal would be. Our commitment was to measure it for a few years and then set a goal. After doing that for a couple of years, I'm a big believer that goals, metrics make everything happen. We set a 25% goal in local and sustainable food, along with a number of other goals. 2017, we actually put this goal into our contract, 25% goal using the HHI definitions that you see here around both local and sustainable. At the same time, we made a commitment for less and better meat. Again, in HHI, we use the HHI definitions and embedded them into the goal. And we've been managing these goals for a number of years, and having those provisions in the contract have really allowed us to, we meet quarterly. We really look at the data, review specific opportunities, and it's been transformative in terms of transforming the quality and amount of local food that we've been able to procure. And I'm going to pass the baton back over to say.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll hear from Jen Brady. Jen Brady is a registered dietitian by trade and the Associate Director of Benefits and Wellness at Penn Medicine. Jen is responsible for the strategy, execution, and management of well-being initiatives across the organization. Additionally, she is responsible for the administration of health and welfare benefits for Penn Medicine employees. Thank you for joining us, Jen.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. And I think you can all see it. I hope so anyway. So today I'm going to talk about Penn Medicine's journey to what?
Yep, Jen, if you can just put it in.
Oh yeah, got it. Good. I'm going to talk about Penn Medicine's journey to healthy food and beverages and the initiatives that fall under that. We are currently signed on to the Good Food Healthy Hospital program, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But first I want to talk about Penn Medicine. Penn Medicine is a world-renowned academic medical center located in Philadelphia. We are comprised of 6 hospitals. We have 10 multi-special ambulatory centers. We have primary care, home care, and hospice services. And we just opened our first urgent care about 2 years ago. We have roughly 37,000 employees. We see 140,000 inpatients annually and 5.4 million outpatients. Our mission is to strive to improve the health and well-being of people through research, education, clinical care, and community service. And we're really proud of that in our commitment to service and to strive to use discovery and rigorous research to benefit our neighborhoods, our city, and ultimately the world. The journey for Penn Medicine has been, it's been a very slow, intentional process. The conversations around our healthy environment initiatives started in January of 2018. And the conversation started initially just to eliminate sugar-sweetened beverages. And the more we talked about it, the more we thought we have this much larger opportunity to be impacting our employees, our community, the patients that we serve, the visitors that come in and out of our hospitals. Yes, people come from all over the world to Penn Medicine, but 2 of our hospitals are right in the middle of Philadelphia, and those patients are our community, and we have this great opportunity to be able to impact way more people with a larger initiative than just focusing on sugar-sweetened beverages. And so the Good Food Healthy Hospital program it's a program that is that our Philadelphia Department of Public Health rolled out a few years ago, and it focuses on 5 components, and those components are procurement, and we too have a procurement goal of obtaining food from less than 250 miles, catering, food served to patients, food served to employees, and the vending machines. And so this is a really comprehensive initiative. And so the more we talked about it, the more we thought, okay, this is a better strategy. And so we decided to roll the Sugar Sweetened Beverage Initiative into the Good Food Healthy Hospital program and focus on both things at the same time. So we took our time. We developed a committee from representatives from wellness, from community health, from food service, our operations teams, and we put together a really solid strategic plan to roll out the initiative. In August, our former CEO, Ralph Muller, launched an internal message, and also we launched a release to the public that said we're about to embark on a healthy food and beverage campaign. We care deeply about the health and well-being of our patients, our employees, and our community. And this is going to impact everyone. And so each of our hospitals signed this Good Food Healthy Hospital pledge, and we all agreed that we were going to eliminate sugar sweetened beverages. So we started with a 6-week campaign educating employees around the impact of drinking sugar sweetened beverages. We called it Rethink Your Drink. And so from August until August of 2018 to August 30th, we completed the sugar sweetened beverage work. We started with the vending machines, and we went from August until March and took out all of the sugar sweetened beverages in the vending machines, location by location, and we have a lot of locations. So it took a little bit of time. And then at the same time, each of the hospitals was working on meeting the standards for the Good Food Healthy Hospital program. And each of those has, all the components that I just mentioned. And underneath each of those components are lots of opportunities for the entities to be making changes within those 5 components. Because we're so large and and we're complex, and there's lots of different food service vendors and different contracts, we decided to align 4 areas to focus on as we implemented the Good Food Healthy Hospital program. And that's where the policies and the contracts have come into play and have been so key for us to be successful. So sugar sweetened beverages was the first. We aspire to be an influential model for the environment, for the health and well-being of our patients, families, and the community. So this was part of the message that went out. Catering was another area that everybody in the health system is focusing on. The elimination of sugar sweetened beverages and also encouraging healthy food at all of our catered events. There is a policy that we wrote and has been implemented around that. Vending machines is another area. We have specific nutrition criteria that we have outlined that meet the Good Food Healthy Hospital standards. And that is 65% of the vending machines are healthy, 35% are less healthy. There's specific sodium requirements, there's no trans fat, lots of other things that have gone into that nutrition criteria. That's also in a policy, and it's also about to be put into our vending machine contract, which is the last bucket here. The beverage contract, we have a relationship with Pepsi. That's our beverage vendor. And so I embedded language into the contract for Pepsi saying that the organization is no longer selling sugar sweetened beverages. I listed out in the contract what we will sell and what we will not sell. That contract was signed on July 1st of this year. We also have the food service operator contracts. And I'm about to turn over the slides to my very good colleague, Erin, And he's going to talk about the unique experience that our main hospital, the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, and the successful transition that they have just gone through with contracting and the RFP process.
Thank you, Jen. Next, as she mentioned, we're going to hear from Erin Berman. Erin is the Assistant Executive Director at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. Erin has oversight for food and nutrition services, environmental services, material management, and patient transportation. Thank you, Erin.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for the invitation to participate in this. So I think Jen did a really nice job of teeing up kind of the organizational wellness initiatives here at Penn Medicine. I want to take that a step down further and talk a little bit of our experience here at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania in recently transitioning food service operators and building in wellness and particularly the Good Food, Healthy Hospital program as one of the key objectives. So I know I only have a couple of minutes. So just about a year ago this month, we organizationally made the decision to go out to the market to select a new food service operator to overall improve safety, service, and quality. In November 2018, the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania started this process by publishing 8 specific goals and objectives that we wanted to communicate to the market regarding this RFP. And these are essentially 8 characteristics of the operator or organization that we wanted to end up with. So as you can see, we have them all listed out on the screen here. One of those specifically was we wanted to partner with an operator that had a demonstrated ability to introduce and sustain food service wellness programs consistent with the Good Food, Healthy Hospital standards. So that was one of the things that we teed up very early in the process as we started speaking to operators. And I think one of the points that you're going to hear throughout this conversation is that, leadership presence is real important. As Jen spoke earlier, this organizational wellness initiatives really came from our organizational C-suite, our corporate C-suite, taking that down a level as we, went to look for a new food service operator. This was one of the 8 key objectives we put in there. And then as the RFP process continued, just to walk you through it, January 2019, we did this pretty aggressive manner. January 2019, the RFP process officially started off with what we called operator visioning sessions. So what those were is we had an opportunity to sit down with 5 pre-screened, pre-qualified food service operators and basically go over our goals and objectives and give them a little bit of a sense of what our current state were, what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, and what we were looking to achieve long term. Based on those conversations, and those are really kind of get to know you meetings to provide the operators with some insight into how things currently work and have an opportunity to hear some of their feedback and potentially customized solutions as to how they were going to help improve service and quality. In February 2019, we started out with those 5 operators. We extended the RFP. We solicited proposals from 3 operators with an entire specific response section of the RFP dedicated to health and wellness programs. And in the RFP, we asked some very specific questions around specific actions operators would take to improve the overall wellness offerings we have. And we specifically distributed the Good Food, Healthy Hospital standards as part of this RFP. In March, moving forward a couple of months, March through April, we received proposals, went through client visits, went through references, clarifying questions, final presentations. And in May of 2019, we issued a letter of intent to AVI Food Systems, who we've been operating with for the last 55 days or so. with a very, very strong start. And one of the reasons that we specifically went with AVI, it wasn't the sole reason, was based on their thoughtful response to how they were going to really implement a best in practice, best in the city wellness program that would be compliant with the Good Food Healthy Hospital gold standard on day one. So that's what really got us hooked. And then we went directly into the contract negotiation. So proposals are great, but until you have something written down in a contract, memorializing the contract, that really doesn't have a lot of teeth. So we really essentially used the proposal that AVI provided, went immediately into contract negotiations, and we put some language with a significant amount of specificity behind it to back this up, to keep both sides honest and make sure that we both lived up to the expectations of operationalizing this program well. So, you know, some examples of that: we negotiated specific contractual language relative to the wellness programs. We had language in the contract that AVI would be gold status compliant, the gold standard with the first meal served. They were, and actually, much to my surprise, I think AVI had the account for less than 48 hours before we got notification from the city that we would actually be receiving the gold standard award. So that was a real feather in AVI's cap. We put languages, as Jen said, we have prohibited sugar sweetened beverages across the organization. We have language in our contract specifying that, as well as we have, there's a small screenshot of the contract below, just basically looking at some language that we had in there to really qualify and provide a level of detail and a level of clear reference around some of the culinary and wellness standards and practices that we were going to put into place. So I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Stephanie from AVI Food Systems. So Jen had a real good opportunity to kind of make this the organizational priority. I came in and then said, hey, we're going to do this really well at HUP. And then Stephanie with AVI came in and actually figured out how to do it. So she did the hard work. I'm going to turn it over to her to talk a little bit about the program, and then we'll take it from there. So thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Stephanie Berman, who is a registered dietitian who rejoined the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania as the Director of Wellness with AVI Food Systems. In addition to leading wellness-focused initiatives across the food service department, Stephanie is responsible for ensuring nutritional standards related to the procurement of food, patient menus, retail dining, and catering operations are upheld.
Hi, everyone. So basically, Jen and Aaron really summarized everything that I'm going to talk about. So I'm just going to go over my slides really quick, just from a food service operator perspective. So AVI really recognized what was truly important to HUP early on in the RFP process, and we were able to differentiate ourselves from the other companies involved by customizing a food service program, like Aaron was explaining, that specifically met HUP's goals. Specifically, AVI went above and beyond by making the commitment that we would meet the gold standard for the Good Food Healthy Hospital initiative. And to do that, we worked with local procurement, local vendors, the Philadelphia Common Market, to make sure that we were providing high quality, nutritiously dense, sustainable food from day one at HUP. And then here is my final slide. So just showing that within 48 hours, like Aaron said, we were able to take the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania to the gold standard for the Good Food Healthy Hospital. And this is just a picture of everyone from University of Pennsylvania, Penn Medicine, that accepting the award for the gold standard. So we accepted it for patient meals, retail dining, catering, and procurement. And that's all. I'm going to turn it back over to Jen Brady to sum everything up.
And I'm back. Next on our list is to work on the vending machines and to be meeting the Good Food Healthy Hospital standards for vending. And that will take 4 of our hospitals to platinum status, which is the highest standard that you can get in the Good Food Healthy Hospital program. So we're pretty excited about that. Okay, so just to summarize, this is my last slide. What we've learned so far in the last year and a half that we've been doing this, senior leadership, as I mentioned in the beginning, and then Aaron touched on, senior leadership, both the support and the articulation of a clear vision is imperative to success. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to meet the standards of this Good Food Healthy Hospital program, and we wanted to eliminate sugar sweetened beverages. And we've been successful in doing both because we had goals and we had a clear vision of what we wanted to do. Surprisingly, we haven't had too much backlash for eliminating sugar sweetened beverages, and actually employees are pretty happy about the healthy options. They want the healthy options. So they're being more receptive than we anticipated. The phased approach, like I said, we started in August of last year and we finished in August of this year. The phased approach, I think, was a really good one. It was well thought out, and it caused very little disruption. As we would slowly take things out of the vending machine, we would replace with something else. It wasn't everything coming off the shelves at one time, slow and steady, and that really seemed to be successful for us. Having all of the key stakeholders at the table has made this process very smooth. We included all of the people who would be impacted by these initiatives. We had a committee who met monthly, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what was going on. And having all of their buy-in was super helpful. Communication is key, starting from that very first email and message from our CEO. It was clear what we were trying to do and what we were, the things that were about to happen. So nobody was surprised. Employees got it from the very top of the organization. Flexibility and buy-in of your business partner is critical for influencing overall success of the program. All of the vendors that we're working with have been really flexible. AVI has been amazing in this process and helping the Hospital University of Pennsylvania literally become gold standard in less than 48 hours. You need a strong partnership with your business partners in order to be successful. And this is really what this is all about. Policies and contracts ensure that the work that all of you are working on, the work that's being done is sustainable, and it holds partners to the goals that you're setting and the standards that you're setting forth by your organization. And that was my last slide. So thank you.
Great. Thank you to the whole UPenn team. And now we're going to have Kristen Markley lead our Q&A session.
Great. Thank you all so much to the panelists. That was a very informative session. So thank you for your time and expertise. Let's see, we have a question here for John. The question is, during your presentation, you noted that you were working with Cisco and Sodexo, but the person asking the question said the slide went by so quickly, and therefore I wanted to confirm if you are continuing to work with these entities in connection with the Healthy Hospitals Initiative and confirm that they were willing participants. I also wanted to ask what enforcement mechanisms are included in the contract to truly assure they are meeting the contractual requirements. So John, if you want to unmute and also turn on your video, the other speakers can do the same. And John, if you can go ahead and address this question.
Sure. So I did the slide that indicated that group. We had this really great working group for about 3 years. It is time bound. It was 2014 to 2016. We had a local partner that sort of served as a neutral clearinghouse. It was Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals both meeting with these vendors and trying to understand sort of the local limitations about local food. Like some things are readily available such as apples. It was to try to develop for us a deeper understanding of the intersection of local food opportunity, the needs of our, food service distribution partners, as well as our food service providers. So it was a really helpful learning exercise. We don't have those meetings are not taking place anymore, but the way that informed the contractual requirements that we put into our contract. At the moment, we use 2 food service companies. With one, we still have sort of just a reporting requirement because we haven't re-upped the contract since we did this. With the second, we put in quarterly reporting requirements and a goal. And so that has led them to disclose with a higher level of granularity and regularity of the information, the local food and where they're getting it from, and like eggs, and there's a number of things that we've brought in that are available locally, that opportunities that we've uncovered and put that we've been able to procure, and essentially we've met our 25% local and sustainable goal. So those 2 companies that you asked explicitly about were kind of in that old configuration. They're still involved in different ways. Our great partner in this work, University Hospitals, is still working on this too, but I'm not as regularly checking in and couldn't speak to what they're doing specifically. But I think what's been encouraging is there definitely is an impetus within. I mean, one of the big challenges in this work on local is just identifying what's local, being able to validly track it. And I would say all our partners are getting better, and I'm talking food service companies as well as our food service distribution partners are getting better and more accurately able to report that, and they're still willing participants in that. I think the goal in our contract has been a big driver of that.
Great, thank you, John. This is a question for Jen Brady. The question is, I am doing very similar work in Colorado with the Colorado Healthy Hospital Compact. One of the pushbacks I hear from hospitals is the unhealthy items are their money makers. What advice do you have that you can share with me? Or did this barrier come up with the hospitals you are working with?
We haven't eliminated all of the unhealthy options. I think that's the point that the Good Food Healthy Hospital makes. It encourages more healthy options, but it doesn't necessarily eliminate all of the bad things. Yes, those are the money makers, but this came from our senior leadership. So eliminating sugar sweetened beverages probably cost the organization some money, but overall, the goal here was to make people healthier and have healthier options. So really, like, that should be the driving factor here. Sales is important, of course, but having very clear goals is obviously what you're trying to do here. We still sell some unhealthy things, but I think it's all about marketing, having the unhealthy options, not close to the counter where you're paying, pushing all the sugar sweetened beverages to the back of the cooler if you still have them, putting things at eye level, having your food service vendor market the healthier things. Pricing is also important. So there are things you can do while still selling the unhealthy things, but promoting the healthier options.
Thank you. That was very helpful. There's a couple questions here that are related. So this is either a question for John or for Jen and your team. The questions are for procurement of local food. How have institutions identified growers to supply them? What successes and failures were experienced? And then also a question related to pricing, particularly specific to local procurement of meat and produce. Can folks speak to this? I'm particularly interested if there's been any internal conversation about how to write contracts that mandate certain percentage of local agricultural products and at what price. So Jen or John, do you want to address that?
I can speak to that a bit.
Okay.
We, in our own contract process, set the goal. I appreciated the Penn team, which did a great job of sort of outlining all the different goals that a food service agreement needs to cover. We have a similar set of goals. And we did not put in the contract specifically anything around pricing. I think what we've done is identify different opportunities, and in certain cases, I'll use one example. So we are part of something called the Grady versus Circle Initiative, which is a local initiative to try to encourage us to hire and buy more locally, which is a broad regional commitment that we've made. So there's a greenhouse called Evergreen, Green City Growers. We purchased their lettuce. We do pay a premium to do that because it is a commitment that, you know, we've made at a broader institutional level. So I think it certainly could and would be helpful, but we've sort of taken it on a case-by-case basis to make those determinations. We do have local food menu options both in our, you know, in our food, both for patient meals as well for, you know, for visitors in our food service, in our food vending locations. And so, you know, seasonally we'll have menus that include local things. And I think the local foods are just priced into whatever the price point is for those specific entrees.
Thank you, John. And I'm looking at the time, and I think we have to start wrapping up so we can stay with our time frame. I just wanted to let people know about some additional resources. Patty Miller and myself co-chair the Chesapeake Farm to Institution Work Group, which is a collaboration between the Chesapeake Food Shed Network and Healthcare Without Harm. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Regional Coordinator for Healthcare Without Harm. So I work throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. And Patty and I co-chair this work group as a way to help you know, all the different stakeholders involved in farm institution be aware of each other, learn from each other, develop programming such as today's webinar. So Valley is going to put in the chat box how you can join the Farm to Institution Google group. Just email the address that that she shared there in the chat box. There's also a good resource from Farm to Institution New England. If you we'll be sharing these slides after today's webinar, so you'll have the link to the resource there on leveraging contracts for local food procurement, and I think that will answer a lot of the questions that we weren't able to get to. And then also I just wanted to mention Healthcare Without Harm has a culinary contest going on right now. It's for hospital chefs and food service professionals. And our theme this year is on submitting a plant forward recipe. And that contest runs until November 30th. So I encourage hospital chefs and food service professionals to check out that contest. And we have a pretty exciting prize for the winner. So take a look at that. And let's see, what's our next slide?
Thank you, Kristen. So now we just want to thank everyone, including our sponsors, once again, Prince Charitable Trust and the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. We also, of course, want to thank our panel of presenters, the co-chairs of the Farm to Institution Work Group, and Valley for your support. Please take a moment to fill out the survey. Valley is going to be putting that in the chat box. We would love to hear your input. If you have any questions, feel free to email myself, Sade, S-A-D-E, at chesapeakefoodshed.net. And thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.